The tainted last words.
Yeah, it's cash. It should be easy. Why we respond, we will do everything in our power to accommodate, but we have no idea what the title search will reveal. Everybody, welcome back to this episode of The Real Estate Show. I'm Tiffany Weber, real estate attorney in Mooresville and Huntersville, North Carolina at Thomas & Weber. Today, I am joined by my favorite co-host, Ryan Weber.
Well, I appreciate that. That's kind words for you to say. Great to have you back. It's been a few weeks.
It has been a few weeks. You have been carrying the show very well, might I add. I really, really enjoyed the episode with John Eads. I thought you guys did a great job.
Well, John is he carries the episode. He's just one of our favorite people that we get to work with. So if you haven't listened to it, I believe it's last episode, 77 or 78. Go check that one out. There's a lot of really good little nuggets for just people in business and real estate agents. Like you pick up a lot of good tips. I went back and listened to it after we recorded and was like, that one was good. There's some good stuff in there.
You know, I rarely listen to the show because I'm on it. So it was nice to be a listener for once. And I made a lot of notes from the show too. I was driving and I'm like, man, I need a pen. I wish I could write that down. So I got back to my desk and was like, I need to make some notes on that. So it was really good stuff. Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. No, you've been quite busy. You've been in the depths of title search. So I said, well, you have no time, but all your brain has been for title search lately. So it should be nothing for you to take 20 minutes to come up here and let's talk title search.
Let's talk title search.
So kind of my thought process on this is I don't know if real estate agents technically know what is in the title search. I certainly don't. I know you're searching for things. Bad things might come up. It goes, sometimes title searches last you a couple hours. Sometimes they last you 40 hours. It just all depends on what it is.
Just searching for titles here and there.
So I guess the first thing is just out here picking up titles.
I'll take that.
So I think the first part of this is like, can you tell everyone what actually goes into the title search? What are you looking for?
I think probably the easiest way to do that is to break it down step by step. I know we've talked on other episodes about the general idea of the title search and what may come out of it, but we've never broken down, first we do this and then we do that. And I think agents may be surprised at how many steps there are, what goes into it. And when we get a file in on a Friday that says, you know, they'd really like to close this by next Friday, it's cash, it should be easy. Why we say...
The tainted last words.
Yeah, it's cash, it should be easy. Why we respond... We will do everything in our power to accommodate, but we have no idea what the title search will reveal. So hopefully this will help explain that a little more. I liken it to if you're renovating your house or you're renovating an old house. You might be paying cash for your renovation, but you don't know what you're going to find until you open up those walls.
Right.
And it might cost you way more time or way more money based on what you find. And it's really similar with the title searches. Based on what you find, that dictates when you're going to close. So the first thing that we're going to do when we get a contract, and this is another reason why the earlier you send your contract in, the better. Sometimes agents will get under contract and not send us the file until 10 days or less before closing. And then that gives us a lot less time to work with issues that we find.
Right.
So get under contract, send it to us. So it gives us more time that if we find issues, we can work on resolving them. So first, when we get your contract, we're going to locate the parcels that are actually being bought and sold. We're going to find the deeds for those. And that seems like an obvious first step, but the main reason is that we are going to send out to the title companies and solicit them for a prior policy of owner's title insurance. And the reason we do that is because in North Carolina, it is common accepted practice to tack on to prior policies of owner's title insurance. And the reason is, depending on when that prior policy was issued, it can save the buyer money because you get a reduced rate of insurance and you get the benefit of all those prior years of insurance that you essentially just add on to.
So just a quick, little Ryan knowledge, because I hear all the little quirks, going on. Agents might have a preferred title company, and sometimes you give them a lot of pushback on that. And your reasoning is, I'm here to work for the buyer. And if the buyer is getting a prior, which is saving them money and getting them better coverage, I'm going to do that. I'm going to ask the buyer first. You know, you might have relationships with other title companies, and that's perfectly fine. If they can do all these things and it also helps the buyer, that's what you're going to do. But just a reminder as to the real estate lawyers help the buyer, that is their client, and they want to do what's best for the client. So just a FYI for the people that might not remember that that's the case.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And also, you know, we can't just go off of someone's word that we have to use a certain title company. If there's an affiliated business, we need a disclosure of that to the buyer signed and a preference form signed by the buyer. Otherwise, you can look at antitrust issues, and we don't want to be involved in that.
Yeah,
and we don't want lender or
a
real estate agent or anyone involved.
There
in
might
that.
be other law firms that love doing it, but we've got a long time that we're going to be practicing real estate law.
We'd like to keep doing it a long time.
We're not going to ride any fine lines. We're gonna do what's right.
And then sometimes we have the issue of, okay, well, my title company will honor that prior policy from another title company. I hear you. But then also we burn relationships with the other title companies, because if they're sending us a prior and then we just don't send the policy back to them and we send it to some other company, they stop sending us priors, which hurts all of our clients.
Right.
So we have to look at the benefit of all of our clients as well. So we're put in a really tough position on the title company.
Yeah. I wanted to do a quick
competition.
little caveat, because we have a lot of title companies that we know and trust, and then we have agents that say this is the company that my buyers want to use, but they just say it, and the buyers are like, I just want to get the good coverage for the best price.
Typically, it's like one that's owned by the lender or has common ownership with the lender or the agency.
There's sometimes you get 4 different conflicting.
We can get competing preference forms. The buyer signs one from the lender, just says, I'm going to use the lender's company. Then we get one from the real estate agent's company. So then we have to go to the buyer and say, you told us you wanted to use 2 different companies.
I don't care about either company. I want the best coverage for the best price.
Yeah. And now the thing is, the prices are consistent across the state. So if you have the prior, then you're going to get the same price regardless of what company. But we have to be sensitive to the fact that we're burning up relationships with other companies it's not good business, and it's not good for buyers in general.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that up. But so back to the next step. If we get a prior policy, then we have the benefit of a shortened search period, which means we can get your results back to you faster. You get the shorter or the least expensive policy price being able to tack on. And like I said, you get the benefit of like the prior policies having been issued that you tack onto. So from there, we move on to searching the relevant time period. If we don't get a prior policy, the North Carolina Marketable Title Act is 30 years. So we got to go back at least 30 years. If the link in the chain takes us further back, it could be, I had one yesterday that I ended up having to go back in the 1800s. To try to figure out where the property vested because it was just passed down.
And trying to read the calligraphy and grammar from the 1800s is not easy.
Not easy. That's right. So we get the prior policy, and when we have our defined search period, then we find tax information. So we're looking for, are there any delinquencies, not just for this year, but for the prior 10 years, because those tax liens can be foreclosed upon. Are there any deferrals? Say you got farm use and you're not having to pay a portion of the taxes. You don't get those taxes forgiven. When you sell the property out of that farm use program, you have to pay the rollback taxes. And sellers are often shocked by this. They're like, what do you mean? I've got to pay how much for 5 years worth of taxes or whatever it may be. And then any exemptions, like an elderly exemption, because those are going to go away when the new buyer purchases, and we have to disclose that and calculate taxes based on what it will be, not what it is.
Right.
So after the taxes, we're looking at the appraisal card to figure out, is this single family residential? Is this a mobile home? When was the last year that it was modified? Because that's relevant to figure out, do we have a lien agent appointed? So we do all of those things and figure out what the appraised value is. Tax situation. Then we move on to our clerk's checks. So that would be register of deeds, judgments, bankruptcies. Then we're going to we have a North Carolina Unified Lien Agent System that we check. So register of deeds, what we're looking for are any conveyances out of the owners to see, did they give away any portion of the property? Looking for encumbrances like deeds of trust. Did they borrow money against the property? That have, then we see, did that deed of trust get paid off? If not, it's still open. It has to be satisfied at closing. Any easements granted, restrictions. So restrictions are a big one. You should be looking at restrictions before you go under contract. Because otherwise, if you find a restriction you don't like, you've given up your due diligence. But that is also something that can be revealed in a title search. When it comes to bankruptcies, we're looking to see if the property has been conveyed during an active bankruptcy, or there is an active bankruptcy right now. You have to have an order of the court to allow you to do that. So we're looking to make sure those orders have been properly filed. Judgments. So judgments, we have two different systems in North Carolina right now. One is an old legacy system that people hate it, but now that we've got the new system, they're like, oh, I hate the new system even more.
And it's like, if anybody older than like 30, you understand, it's like MS-DOS.
It's MS-DOS, yeah.
So you have to literally just look at like a blinking green cursor and hope that it comes up with information.
Yes.
There's not pictures, guys.
No, there's no pictures. And there's like the commands are not easy, but
yeah, it's like wingdings in there. It's not even like a normal font. Yeah.
So that's the legacy system that most of the state is on. And then the newer, some counties have moved over to the new system, Odyssey. So that's where we find out if any of the owners have judgments against them. Search I was doing yesterday. There was a life estate and some remainder interests, and one of the remainder men has a judgment against him. And the life estate owner's trying to sell. The remainders are like, yeah, we'll sell it, but
of course they'll sell.
Yeah,
the debt will get paid when we sell.
That judgment's got to get paid off. So, so those are things that we're looking for. Claims of lien. Some may have been expired, so we'll have to look in to see if they're expired. Lawsuits that are pending, so that we have to check to see if they become a judgment before closing. What else is going to be in there? Estates are going to be shown in there. Any special proceedings for like lunacy, anything like that. So those are the things we're looking for in judgments. I already talked about bankruptcies, and then North Carolina lien, the unified system. Anytime you have a site where work is being done, they're supposed to post the lien agent so that you know where to go file notice of lien. And that way we know who needs to have a lien waiver signed at closing. So those are the main systems we're looking for. Sometimes depending on what you find, you might have to keep looking further. But those are the main ones that you need to be able to draft a preliminary title opinion. So that's the next thing we do. So we basically...
It seems like a pretty easy process.
Super easy.
You're not really doing that much.
So you basically make a book report of what you found.
You're just licking your chops when you get to that. You're like, gosh, I can't wait. I love a book report.
What he's trying to say to you guys is I'm a nerd.
Yes. I think anybody that listens to this should know that you are a nerd.
Yeah. So North Carolina attorneys use a very similar format because there's certain things that the title companies have to be able to issue a title commitment. But some attorneys add some extra little things here and there. But you're drafting
like pizzazz, or is it like, is it needed? Is it, or is it like?
I think it's stylistic.
Okay, do you have a style?
Do you
get like is it like, do you get a little more like emphasis on certain things?
I do.
Nice.
But I like to explain because the worst thing is I'm
learning so much. I love it. Like I want to know your style. And
okay.
I hope other people go like when they're researching it and looking at it, they're like, ooh.
Oh, that's the Weber style.
Yeah,
right
this
there.
is a good style right here.
There's nothing worse than in a chain of title where you're looking at something that another attorney has closed, that they've done a title search on, a title commitment has been issued, but you can't figure out how they got the basis for what they've done. So it's usually when there's an estate involved and you're like, okay, well, someone died here and someone inherited, but we don't know who and why and how. So then you have to redo their work. So I like to err on the side of this is not just for the benefit of my buyer when they buy, but when they sell, because whoever they sell to, that closing attorney, I want them to be able to chase the breadcrumbs.
I hope there's closing attorneys out there that are like, man, I'd love getting a Thomas and Weber closing because
I don't know. I mean, probably not. There's, I'm sure just from the volume we do, there's probably people that are like, God, another one. We're certainly not the biggest, but we do enough that, we're not perfect. We try very hard to be detailed though. So I like to explain, like, so-and-so died on this date in this estate file, and her beneficiaries were this, this, and this. And then this beneficiary died in this estate file, and their beneficiary. So that's how we got here. That's my style. So I just like to leave breadcrumbs.
The easiest way to explain it is when you have a really long math problem, and they're like, show your work.
Exactly.
Tiff likes to show her work.
I like to show my work. And
I'd like to just give the problem. Here's the answer. Right? How? Just trust me.
If you remember geometry and it was so annoying that you had to do the proofs that just explained yourself, and you're like, we all know how we got to the answer. Well, it was a great practice for real life, because you're wondering, when am I ever going to use this? Oh, in real life, when you have to leave breadcrumbs for someone else to follow. So that's the perfect analogy for that. So after a preliminary title opinion has been drafted, we send it to the title company that's going to be issuing the policy, and they prepare something called a title commitment. And it is showing the requirements to be able to issue the policy. For example, if there's a judgment, they're not going to issue a policy unless there's evidence that the judgment has been paid. If there's a person who's selling who's married, they're not going to issue a policy unless the spouse signs off on the conveyance. There's an estate, there's other requirements. It's the open estate indemnity agreement.
So this is really good for the realtors to know that, like, we're not making stuff up. And like
it's not our whims.
Well, and also we're having to wait until we get this back to know like exactly who and how and things need to get signed or taken care of.
Now the title companies rely on us as certifying attorneys, but they're going to have their requirements too. So if I've looked through an estate file, we've done this enough times and reviewed the law enough times, I know who needs to sign. So I can get my people working on that. But the title company will not issue a policy unless that's done.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets kind of, let's say you got a seller who disagrees with our assessment, often attorney from another state, maybe, or thinks, well, this other attorney allowed me to do it. You got lucky because maybe the buyer didn't get title insurance. In North Carolina, if you're using our standard offer to purchase, you are agreeing to give marketable and insurable title. So that means there's now brought in a title insurance company. And who decides what's insurable? Title companies. Yeah. Not me. I don't decide if it's insurable. Only the insurance company can do that. So if we have a weird scenario and the title company says, we will insure if 1, 2, and 3 happen, then 1, 2, and 3 have to happen. And if we can't get that done, then we don't have insurable title, and you've got a seller who can't meet the what they've agreed to in the contract. So sometimes we have to remind sellers of that is we are not at the mercy of the title company. It's not like there are overlords, telling us what to do. It's for the benefit of the buyer, and it's for the protection of the buyer, and it's something you agreed to in the contract. So if you don't want to have to be bound to provide insurable title, you need to amend the contract accordingly. Buyer's probably not going to want that, probably not going to agree to that. But if that's something that you don't want to have to deal with, then talk to your agent, talk to an attorney about amending it. So the title commitment gives us requirements and exceptions that tells us, what's the amount of the policy. So if there's some claim, how much are they going to pay up to? The things that have to be done for them to issue the policy, and things that they do not insure over. So things of record, like easements, that's of record. That's out there. That Duke has a utility easement on your property so you can have power. The title company is not going to insure over that matter. They're also not going to insure over things that you can find on a survey. It's one of the biggest reasons why we encourage getting a survey, because as a buyer, if you put your head in the sand and basically like, I don't want to know, well, the title company's not going to protect you from that. You could have found out. So if you get a survey, find an issue, get it resolved before closing, great. If you don't choose not to get a survey and you find out there's an issue after, you're dealing with that on your own dime. So the exceptions are very important. So after the commitment is issued, really we're off to the races, going to closing. You pay your premiums on the closing statement. There's some things we have to do after closing to get the final policies issued. So that's providing lien waivers, deeds of trust, really showing that requirements list. We have to provide evidence to the title company that all those requirements were met, and then they will issue the final policy.
So
Only takes about 5 minutes.
yeah, it's no, and
The whole
none
process.
None of this stuff generally is in the same spot. So you're going to multiple different places to pull all this
But
information.
not none of it generally. None of it's in the same spot.
Okay, none of it's in the same spot, and so that's why it takes sometimes a while, and then also. If you've got, just an example, if we have 50 closings that came in this week and we have 50 requests, well, that means there's 50 title searches that need to happen. It takes some time. Like it's going to be, working through a list of what is the most priority because it's closing the soonest. Okay, what's the next? Generally, I think we try to stay 2 to 4 weeks ahead of. Well, we try and stay 30
We
days,
like
right?
to complete searches 2 to 3 business days from when we receive them, depending on what we get in. Sometimes that stretches a little further, but that's our goal.
Right.
But it's all based on the circumstances. And there's some searches that. The one that was going back to the 1800s, that was a couple hours over a couple days.
Yeah. So I guess the next thing is if you're someone listening and you hear the title search is happening, what are some of the issues that could arise? And I think the two-parter of this is how can they solve it, or how could they have that prevented or solved prior to going under contract?
Well, the thing that you can do before going under contract, restrictions. Look at the restrictions before you go under contract. If you don't know where to find them, request them of the listing agent and the seller. Call the HOA. Ask them for a complete copy of the restrictions and the rules and regulations. The rules don't have to be recorded. The bylaws don't have to be recorded, but they are absolutely incorporated. So your buyer's going to be bound by those. So before you ever submit an offer or sign a final contract, get those restrictions.
I'm going to say this one more time. Even though there's no HOA, it doesn't mean that there's no restrictions on the property.
Right.
Most properties have some sort of restriction in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's incredibly rare that you would not have a restriction of some sort. So those could be contained within a deed, and they don't have to be separate CC&Rs. So that's the one thing that I would say you could resolve beforehand. Other things, this might be controversial, but I would be hard-pressed to believe that a seller doesn't know they have a judgment against them. You get served with a lawsuit. There's hearings. Sometimes there's trials. I suppose you could have a default judgment where you don't show up and they just enter judgment against you, but you were still served. So that's something that does not have to be a surprise from the title search. The seller should be telling their listing agent, by the way, I do have this judgment that has to be paid off. So we don't want that to be a big thing that's going to hold up.
And, it's fine asking listing agents, it's fine asking because you're going to find it.
Well, and it's part
And
of
I
the
would let them know.
disclosures because judgments that are against people that own property attach to their property. So
Right.
it affects the property. So the subject matter of the lawsuit doesn't have to be about the property. But if it's a judgment against you and you own property, then it affects your property. So it should be disclosed as part of the process of listing and then going under contract. So that's one thing you can get ahead of is having your sellers be upfront about things. Another thing is, let's say you do find something during the search that there's a judgment, we're going to have to get accurate payoffs for those. And the payoffs come from the clerk of court. So we're at their mercy of when we get them, how they direct them to be paid, all of that. So we're looking at things outside of our control because we don't control the clerk of court. Deeds of trust that are found where the sellers didn't provide us with the payoff information, then we're having to chase it down. We're at the mercy of, responsiveness of other people. So really just cooperation is the biggest thing that can be done to help the process not take long or take as long as it might otherwise. Liens, Those are things that, got to be paid. Either we get lien waivers from the people that need to be paid saying, I've been paid everything I'm owed, or invoices to pay them at the closing table so that we can know there are no liens on the property going forward. What else might come up? Oh, let's say survey issue. That's part of, that is a title issue. That becomes an agent stepping in to negotiate. So a lot of these title issues, if it's on the seller, it's on the seller to resolve. So that means an agent's going to have to be helping that seller navigate how to get it resolved. We represent the buyer in the transaction. So we might be able to give some information about what we found, but it is not our obligation to resolve the seller's title issues. So they can hire another attorney to do that, whatever really it takes to get it done. But that usually involves the listing agent helping them, figure out what to do. But survey issues, say there's an encroachment, how you negotiate to resolve that is going to be between the parties. So, whether it's a material title defect or not depends on what is found. And then whether you're getting an encroachment agreement, getting it removed, accepting a price concession, that's negotiation between the parties. That's not between the attorneys.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if there's necessarily more to it than that. The goal for all real estate agents is to hear the phrase clear title, because that means it's all good and we're good to go.
The two best phrases, clear title and clear to close.
Clear to close and clear title. And, your goal is to get people to clear title as smoothly and efficiently as possible. And as we just heard, there's this whole entire process to make sure that title is indeed clear and clear. I guess, I'll probably just ask this one so I could use it for a clip on social media. Yeah. What is clear title?
So clear title is when you're able to close without any material defects. So, example, utility easements, that's an encumbrance on title, but it doesn't make the title unmarketable. It doesn't make it uninsurable. So these are things that wouldn't diminish the property's value or make it so a title company won't insure.
So there you go. You hear how Tiff answers all of my social media questions, and you think that, she has to plan. No, it's like that every time. I get zero editing. So thank you, Tiff.
Well, you've made me practice quite a bit.
Yeah,
so thank you, Ryan.
I think 500 plus videos in, you're kind of getting to be an expert on that part. Can I call you an expert in video world? Because I can't call you an expert in lawyer world.
Like an expert on camera legal personality, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I would rather not toe the line there.
Okay, so what would you like to be called?
Tiffany.
No, you wouldn't. You don't even like that name.
Yeah,
Just Tiff. No, I think that was really good information. I think that's going to be helpful for people. And I really do think it was we all hear title. We hear it all the time. I hear all these buzzwords downstairs when I walk down there. And it's like, well, what are you guys actually doing? Mm-hmm. So I think the type of person that does title. Tell me about that type of person.
Analytical, detailed, organized, able to know when to dig further, and know when you've got your answer, so that you can move on, and not afraid to ask questions, and collaborative.
Yeah. So I think that's a good understanding from what is title and how does it affect our friends in the real estate industry.
Yeah. Some are really short, some are really long.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just never know until we open up the walls.
Yeah, absolutely. So quick little plug here. Real estate agents, we have been so hesitant for so long to have any real estate agent be involved with our social media. And not because we don't like you. We love you guys.
Yeah.
The problem is...
We think that other agents may not like it.
The problem is sometimes, every now and then, you guys get a little territorial and you don't like hearing from other agents. However, I think we're at a point where we're excited to help real estate agents share their stories and their tips and tricks, because we're always trying to help real estate agents, no matter who they are, have a smoother, easier transaction. So with the Real Estate Show, we are going to add a segment with a real estate agents. So if you would like to be a part of this, we have 3 sections of this. you are going to tell one of your wild stories, because who doesn't love wild real estate stories? We are going to have you bring a question to the table. It can be for Tiff if you'd like to have your conversation with Tiff. So it's got to be some sort of real estate, educational, with the closing, legal, blah, 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 smart people stuff. Or if you'd like it to be around marketing, you could have your conversation with me.
Smart, fun people stuff.
Just fun people. We're in smart kitting. I was trying to catchphrase that.
Smart kitting.
But some guy already had bought
already
smartkitting.com, and so I was like, well, never mind. Fun marketing. We'll come fun kitting. I'm going to come up with something. And then the final section of this is you need to bring some sort of tip. I don't know, that Tiff is a part of a big law firm, other podcasting thing, for law firm owners, and they call it the hack of the week. And so it's kind of the thing that you can do to grow and advance yourself as a lawyer or as a law firm business owner. And so we kind of want real estate agents to kind of bring their hack of the week, but we need to coin it something different.
Yeah. We're not going to take that from Max Law because they get that.
They're good. But basically you need to bring some sort of piece of advice or software or something you can do to help other real estate agents and explain it. And, once again, we're collaborative. We're trying to help everyone grow. We want to see real estate agents succeed as much as possible. So if you would like to be a part of that, send me a DM on the law firm's Instagram account @Law@the-Lake. I manage it most of the time. So I will see it if you'd like to be a part of it. I've got some criteria. So if you fall within the criteria, if you got a good story, you want to be a part of the real estate show, you've got to be here in person. We're recording right here at the law firm's office. But we'd love to have some people on here, and we're going to start telling some of you guys' stories, which is a first in the real estate show history.
Here's my tip of the week.
Let's see. Let's hear it, Tiff.
If you like to take handwritten notes, this device I've been fidgeting with, they're remarkable too. That's the ticket right there.
Hashtag not sponsored, but let's try and get a sponsorship on this thing.
Yeah, I love this thing. I'm a big handwritten note person. Probably not going to shock anybody either.
Keep going. I'm going to try and cut this up and get it to them. Let's get some money. What else we got?
I've been using it to take notes on things big and small. You've got templates. You can upload templates that you make on your own or that you buy. It's got I honestly can't even, I haven't even dove into all of the different features. But you have the ability to convert handwritten notes to text. You can email your notes to yourself. And one of the best things about it is that there's no other apps.
Yeah,
you cannot get distracted.
It's just a notepad
this is
that's
for
digital.
writing.
Yeah.
It has a nice, you feel like you're writing.
It feels like I have used it. It feels like you're writing. It's nice. You flip it over. It uses the eraser. So what I will do, if you want one of these things, I'm going to put an affiliate link. That means we get paid a little bit.
We do?
It's like 1%. So we get nothing. But if you do want to buy one of these Remarkables, go click our little link and then go shopping on Amazon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We don't have an affiliate with Remarkable. This is not a...
No, just go to Amazon. But I'm going to put a little affiliate link. So click that. Go do your shopping. And we'll get about 47 cents from that, but that's going to almost buy Tiff's extra shot of coffee because she's been doing all of these title searches for our law firm for the past month.
Yeah.
See how I brought that back around?
You brought it back around. I love it.
Awesome. Well, close us out, Tiff. You're better than me at this. Okay. I get confused.
Well, I do want to say thanks again for being my co-host. It's true that you're my favorite co-host. And hopefully you remain my favorite co-host. Probably not going to ever have another one. But I think that was a really helpful thing for agents and really anybody involved in real estate to know everything that goes into the title search. I didn't even get to everything, but I know we had a timeline to meet. So that was kind of just you want to know the nitty gritty? There it is. Hopefully you learned something today. And, if you want to keep learning more stuff, you got to tune in to the real estate show every week.